It is January 2009, in the office of the Accountant General of the Federation of Nigeria. The people here are working tirelessly to ensure the country runs smoothly. But one section of this office is the most busy. The guy in charge of money transfers has just concluded his 128th transfer in the last 24 hours, sending 999 million naira in each of those transactions, totaling 127.872 billion naira to 128 different beneficiaries. These payments were alleged to be for something called fuel subsidy. In the following months, oil marketers would receive huge sums of money amounting to 230.184 billion naira as subsidies for petroleum products that were never supplied. Nigeria's national oil company, the NNPC, was not left out of this scandal, with the corporation paying itself 310.4 billion naira for something it called arrears of subsidy on kerosene, even though the president had ordered the removal of subsidies for kerosene months earlier. In the same spirit, the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency paid itself 158 billion naira in one occasion and 157 billion naira in another instance. This scandal would throw the country into chaos, with both houses of National Assembly launching a series of investigations that would reveal one of the most shocking frauds in Nigeria's history. This is the story of Nigeria's fuel subsidy scandal, a $6.8 billion fraud that lasted for 3 years. The big question we have to answer here is, who were the culprits and how did they get away?
Government a few days ago announced further deregulation for the downstream petroleum sector. The immediate effect of this has been the removal of the subsidy on petrol.
Now let's pause here for a second. Imagine being able to create anything, from a cyberpunk story about robots escaping the Matrix to an epic exploration of the world's most incredible wonders. Now check this out. Make a 1-minute video of the story of a robot in a cyberpunk setting that wants to escape the Matrix.
There existed a robot named Nexus.
This is the incredible InVideo V3, the most powerful tool for turning your ideas into full-length videos using only text prompts. If you want to change anything, just ask. If you want to add your own voice, you can do that as well. Whether you're creating storytelling, product videos, social media posts, or purely imaginative creations, InVideo V3 is your new go-to tool for bringing your wildest ideas to life faster and better than ever before. InVideo AI's new update does so much more than Sora and the likes, and in just a few weeks it will be available for everyone. No waiting, no research fees, just results. If you use my exclusive code displayed on your screen right now, when signing up, you will get 2 times video creation minutes in the first month for their current version. Click the link in the bio and start bringing your imagination to life. Thank you InVideo for sponsoring this video. Let's jump back into our story. It all started in 1973. The Arab world was in disarray, following the decision of a coalition of Arab countries led by Egypt and Syria to attack this tiny country called Israel. Egypt's main goal here was to gain control of the eastern bank of the Suez Canal and subsequently leverage these gains to negotiate the return of the rest of the Israeli-occupied Sinai Peninsula. And so the Arab coalition launched a surprise attack against Israel on the 6th of October 1973.
In the south, the Syrians were now only 10 minutes tank drive.
As things got heated, both sides looked to their powerful allies for support. This was deep in the middle of the Cold War, and this presented the United States and the Soviet Union with a perfect opportunity to flex their muscles. The US President at the time, Richard Nixon, made a request to the US Congress to make available an emergency aid of $2.2 billion to Israel. This would spark a wild outrage in the Arab world. The Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries responded by placing an oil embargo on the United States. All Arab petroleum exporting countries refused to sell oil to the United States and, by extension, its allies. They also began a series of production cuts that altered the world's supply of oil. As a result of this, the price of oil shot through the roof, going from $2.9 a barrel before the embargo to $11.65 a barrel in January 1974. Even though this embargo was lifted in March of 1974, the prices of oil didn't come down. This marked the beginning of a huge problem for one particular black nation that was just coming out of a disastrous civil war that had destroyed most of its infrastructure. You see, when oil prices went up in 1973, the Nigerian government had to introduce a price control measure to help its citizens who were overly reliant on petrol for their daily lives. This price control was to make the product affordable and accessible, as well as sustain the welfare of the people in the face of higher crude oil prices. By 1977, this policy became law following the promulgation of the Price Control Act, which made it illegal for some products, including petrol, to be sold above the regulated price. As the country's population grew and prices of oil continued to rise, the amount for subsidizing this petroleum product kept going up as well. Soon enough, greedy politicians and oil marketers saw a way to make money off the system. Hence, what started off as a noble cause to help the citizens soon became a playground for corrupt public officials to loot and mismanage public resources. To paint a picture for you, it is estimated that between 2005 and 2021, the Nigerian government spent over $74 billion to finance fuel subsidies, with about $10 billion out of that amount coming in 2022 alone. While this humongous amount has been lamented by many as wasteful, it was the insane scandal that saw oil marketers defraud the Nigerian government of $6 billion in the name of fuel subsidies that set off alarm bells for the government, making it realize that maybe, just maybe, it was time to end it all. But who were the culprits and how did they do it? On the 1st of January 2012, Nigeria's President Goodluck Jonathan delivered one of his most hated speeches in Nigeria when he said his government was considering ending the fuel subsidy regime.
As part of our efforts to transform the economy and guarantee prosperity for all Nigerians, government a few days ago announced further deregulation of the downstream petroleum sector. The immediate effect of this has been the removal of the subsidy.
There was widespread protest against this government policy. It was known as the Occupy Nigerian protest of 2012. Some of the leaders of that protest are leading the country of Nigeria today. At the time, very few people knew what the president had seen to be making this very drastic policy decision, barely months after winning his first election into office. The president would later clarify that his government was taking this step to end the endemic corruption that had plagued the subsidy regime and cut out wastage. The money could be used for developmental purposes that would help the Nigerian economy, he said. But the Nigerian people wouldn't take this explanation from President Jonathan. If there is corruption, take out the corruption and leave the subsidy for us, they responded. The House of Representatives, trying to avoid a full-blown anarchy, swung into action. In an emergency session on the 8th of January 2012, the House set up an ad hoc committee to verify and determine the actual subsidy requirements and monitor the implementation of the subsidy regime in Nigeria. The committee decided to not just focus on 1 year alone, but to broaden the scope of this investigation to cover 3 years from 2009 to 2011. The ad hoc committee held public hearings from the 16th of January 2012 to the 9th of February 2012, taking sworn testimonies from 130 witnesses, receiving information from several volunteers, and receiving in evidence over 3,000 volumes of documents. When they started looking through the books, they discovered that 5 companies, including the NNPC, were involved in the fuel subsidy scheme in 2006. 10 were involved in 2007 and 19 in 2008. By 2011, that number had ballooned to 140 companies. In the course of the investigations, The ad hoc committee also established that the agencies in the petroleum industry deliberately ignored statutory requirements and other guidelines under the Petroleum Support Fund (PSF) scheme that mandated them to keep a reliable information database. This lack of record keeping contributed to the deep-rooted corruption that plagued the fuel subsidy regime. But what were the corrupt practices unearthed by this committee? Well, for starters, much of the amount claimed to have been paid as subsidy was not for consumed petrol. It was established that the figures quoted by officials were a clear attempt to mislead the Nigerian people. Investigators found that importers were being paid subsidies for 59 million liters of petrol a day, while the country only consumed 35 million liters a day. In one particular instance, an official figure of subsidy payment of 1.3 trillion naira was released to the public. Then the Accountant General of the Federation put forward a different figure of 1.6 trillion naira before the CBN released yet another figure of 1.7 trillion naira. In their investigations, the committee established subsidy payment of 2.5 trillion naira as of December 31st, 2011, amounting to more than 900% over the appropriated sum of 245 billion naira. This figure of 2.5 trillion naira is said to be based on the CBN figure of 844.944 billion naira paid to the NNPC, in addition to another figure of 847.942 billion naira reflected as withdrawals by NNPC from the excess crude naira account, as well as the sum of 894.201 billion naira paid as subsidy to the marketers. The House Committee noted that as at the time the public hearing was concluded, there were outstanding claims by the NNPC and the marketers in excess of 270 billion naira as subsidy payments for 2011 alone. The investigators also established that the NNPC went rogue and was unaccountable to anybody or authority. Documents reviewed by the investigators showed that the corporation in 2011 processed payment of 310.4 billion naira as 2009 to 2011 arrears of subsidy on kerosene, even though a presidential directive had removed subsidy on kerosene in 2009. The corporation also processed for itself a direct deduction of subsidy payment from amounts it received from other operations, such as joint ventures, before paying the balance to the Federation account. The direct deduction in 2011 alone amounted to 847.942 billion naira and was effected without any provision for it in the Appropriation Act. But the NNPC was not alone in this lawlessness. Some of the marketers were involved in claiming subsidies on products they did not supply. Investigation revealed that certain marketers collected subsidies of over 230.184 billion naira in PMS volume of 3.2 billion liters that were never supplied. Some agencies of government were also complicit in this mess and not transparent with the subsidy money. In one instance, the Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Agency allegedly paid 158 billion naira to itself in 2009 and 157 billion naira in 2010 to itself. In another instance, the Accountant General, who served during the period 2009, was found to have made payments of equal installments of 999 million naira for a record 128 times within 24 hours on the 12th and 13th of January 2009. The total transaction was 127.8 billion naira. This raised eyebrows during the investigation when the House Committee discovered that only 36 marketers were known participants under the Petroleum Support Fund scheme during this period. But even if there were 128 marketers, it made no sense to them that all these people would import the same quantity of products to warrant equal payments. After careful consideration, the committee recommended the refund of over 1 trillion naira to the National Treasury from the people it had suspected to have defrauded the government. The committee also recommended the investigation of companies that were alleged to have received forex with questionable utilization. But who were those behind these companies, and how much benefit did they get from this fraud? I'll first show you the companies that allegedly obtained forex but did not import petroleum products. Here is a table showing the names of these companies, the amount they allegedly received, and the year. We have Business Ventures Nigeria Limited, East Horizon Gas Company Limited, Emadeb Energy, Pukat Nigeria Limited, Synopsis Enterprises Limited, Xenon Pet and Gas Limited, Carnival Energy Oil Limited, Crown Lines, Ice Energy Petroleum Trading Limited, and many more of these companies. The list is lengthy. I'm going to leave a link in the description box if you want to go through this document. In this other table are names and records of companies that participated in the fuel subsidy scheme but allegedly refused to appear before the committee and never submitted the required documents, as was repeatedly announced during the hearing. There is Motas Petroleum Limited, Nepal Oil and Gas Service, Oil Bat Nigeria, Techno Oil Limited, and many more. This list has 17 names on it and a combined 41.9 billion naira as total sums paid to them. The House Committee assumed that these companies deliberately refused to appear because they had something to hide. Well, with their names revealed, the EFCC swung into action. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, declared 3 oil marketers implicated in this scam wanted. They were Abdul Hafiz Olabisi of Fago Petroleum and Gas Limited. We have Abubakar Peters, Managing Director of Nadabo Energy Limited, and Ikechukwu Onuabuchi of Star Inspection Services Nigeria Limited. They were all declared wanted by the Commission for offences bordering on criminal conspiracy, forgery, obtaining money by false pretenses, and money laundering, running into several billions of naira. They were accused of obtaining billions of naira as subsidy payments from the Petroleum Support Fund under false pretense and disappeared when the Commission began its investigation of the subsidy regime. Some powerful players in the petroleum sector alleged to have participated in this fuel subsidy regime were Oando Oil, Con Oil, African Petroleum, and MRS Oil. These companies were alleged to have shared over 3.655 trillion naira between 2006 and September 2011 in pursuit of importation of refined petroleum products into Nigeria. According to Senator Magnus Ibe, the chairman of Nigerian Senate Joint Committee on Petroleum Appropriation and Finance, some 100 companies in the downstream sector and in construction shared over 1.426 trillion naira between January and August 2011 alone. This table shows their full name. According to the senator, Oando Nigerian PLC received 228.5 billion naira, MRS received 224.8 billion naira, Pinnacle Construction received 300 billion naira, Enac Oil and Gas 19.6 billion naira, Con Oil 37.9 billion naira, Bovas and Co Nigeria Limited 5.685 billion naira, Obat 85 billion naira, and AP 104.5 billion naira. We have other names on this list which I can't possibly go over in this video. Their full details will be in my sources linked in the description of this video. But after all this charade, what happened to the investigation and the indictments? On October 19, 2011, a vessel, MT Zen Star, was said to have docked on Nigerian waters with 58,000 metric tons of petrol owned by 2 companies, Masters Energy Oil and Gas Limited and Cards Oil and Gas Limited. This was according to findings by the committee set up by the Nigerian government in 2012 to investigate subsidy payments. Masters Energy claimed it discharged 28,000 metric tons of petrol from the vessel in the presence of officials of the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, Department of Petroleum Resources, Navy, Customs, and others. In reality though, MT Zen Star does not exist. Yeah, there was no vessel like this. But Masters Energy collected 2.9 billion naira as subsidy claims from the Nigerian government. Despite the indictment, Masters Energy was among some other indicted firms that were never prosecuted. Another company called Eternal Oil and Gas PLC was initially arraigned in 2012 by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC. However, in 2014, the firm was rearranged again along with its director, Mahmoud Tuku. son of former chairman of the People's Democratic Party, alongside other suspects over a 3.1 billion naira fuel subsidy scam. The accused persons were charged on a 38 amended count charge bordering on conspiracy, obtaining money under false pretense, and forgery. Also in 2012, a House of Representative committee led by Farouk Lawan named AMG Petro Energy, Setana Energy, and Prudent Energy in a list of 68 oil marketers that collected subsidy funds from the federal government illegally. The committee mandated the three companies to refund the sum of 7.2 billion naira, 2.7 billion naira, and 1.3 billion naira respectively to the Nigerian government. Prudent Energy, which failed to appear before the committee, was also listed among marketers that were not registered with the PPPRA before they got their first allocation for product supplies. The company received its first allocation on August 12, 2011, 10 days before it registered with this government agency, the lawmakers found. According to the House committee, Setana Energy was also a marketer that had no tank farm, never used its throughput agreement, yet they used it to claim 2.7 billion naira as the fee for the importation of 44.8 million liters of petroleum products under the Petroleum Support Fund scheme. The trio of AMG Petro Energy, Etana Oil, and Prudent Energy and Resources Limited were also listed as tax defaulters under the PSF scheme. Remember the record-breaking 128 separate subsidy payments of 999 million naira each made by the Accountant General's office in 2009 under 24 hours? Well, investigators later revealed names of the companies that benefited to include Owando with 25.9 billion naira in 26 checks. Britannia U Nigeria Limited received 999 million naira in one check, and Northwest Petroleum received 8.9 billion naira in 9 checks. The Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency had, however, explained at the time that the financial regulations at that period barred government agencies from issuing checks of 1 billion naira and above. Well, while the technical committee responsible for these revelations recommended that illegal payments made to oil marketers be recovered, the House committee called for the prosecution of fraudulent beneficiaries. In the end, not all indicted marketers were ever prosecuted by the Nigerian government. For instance, Masters Energy, Setana Energy, Prudent Energy, and AMG Petro Energy were not charged to court. Also, when the NNPC released the names of 39 winners for the sale and purchase of Nigerian crude in 2017 and 2018 for the contract that was to run for 1 year effective from January 1st for consecutive 12 cycles of crude oil allocation, it involved 18 Nigerian companies, 11 international traders, 5 foreign refineries, 3 national oil companies, and 2 NNPC trading firms. But the interesting part of this list is that at least 6 of the companies listed by the NNPC were named as participants in the fuel subsidy fraud of 2011, and some are still facing charges over the matter. These names include Masters Energy, Owando, Etana Oil and Gas, Setana Energy, AMG Petro Energy, and Prudent Energy. But you know the most interesting part of all this? The probe was not free of corruption allegations either. It was reported that in an attempt to shield the independent marketers who have colluded with the state to steal public resources in the disguise of subsidy payment, Mr. Lawal, the chairperson of this committee, allegedly collected bribe from Mr. Femi Otedola, the managing director of Xenon Oil. He was caught, arrested, and suspended by the House of Reps in an emergency sitting convened by Mr. Aminu Tambuwa, the former House of Representative Speaker. He was later charged to court. But even with these huge investigations and the trials that followed, questions still remain. One of them is, did Nigeria really solve the problem? Or did we replace the scammers with more powerful ones this time?